So we now have a new update from the CDC here in the United States. This is actually breaking news because what we are now facing is something that many people were speculating that this is something we should have been doing years ago. Now, I'm going to break down what the CDC is saying or what they are about to say, because they are about to drop the 5-day COVID isolation guideline. This is huge because this is exactly what many experts were telling us early on in the pandemic. And now the CDC says after about 4 years, well, it's time to make the move. So I'm going to break down what's going on in just a moment. I'll read through some of this article from the Washington Post and we'll discuss this together. So all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So here's the article that we are going to go over. It says CDC plans to drop 5-day COVID isolation guidelines. This is what we need to talk about. And the reason why we need to talk about this is because many people are furious. Okay, they test positive, but they have no symptoms. No fever, no cough, no scratchy throat, right? They have nothing, no symptoms, but yet they tested positive. Are they supposed to still stay home for 5 days and isolate themselves? Well, according to recent reports, the answer is yes. According to recent CDC guidelines, the answer is yes. But I want to show you a couple things. I want to read some things right here. Here's a couple I want to read. First one right here. It says public health has to be realistic. In making recommendations to the public today, we have to try to get the most out of what people are willing to do. You can be absolutely right in the science and yet accomplish nothing because no one will listen to you. This is the main thing. You have to be realistic. When the CDC was telling us that you need to isolate for 7 days, okay, 7 days, a whole week. You couldn't go to school, you couldn't go to work, you couldn't go out, isolate in your room for 7 days. And again, this was, I believe it was 7 days was when the symptoms started. And then it went to when symptoms ended, you still had to wait like 3 or 4 days. Now they're saying if you have no symptoms, then you do not need to isolate. Look at this. Look at their plan, okay? I want to show this to you. And again, this is all just coming out today. We do not know when the CDC is going to actually talk about this or release it, but we kind of have an idea, and I'll talk about that in a second. It says the CDC plans to recommend that people who test positive for COVID use clinical symptoms to determine when to end isolation. It says under the new approach, people would no longer need to stay home if they have been fever-free for at least 24 hours without the aid of medication and their symptoms are mild and improving, according to 3 agency officials. Here's the thing. Isn't this exactly what we were discussing back in 2020, 2021? Okay, not really 2020 because that was still new, but in 2021, where we were still being told, oh, you tested positive, well, you need to isolate. Here's the thing. According to reports, the vast majority of Americans and people all across the world, they now have a kind of intolerance to this, okay? Because now they've built up that immunity where the COVID, the whole situation is not going to impact us like it initially did because we went through it already. I believe they say like 99.8% of people have contracted the virus or have received the shot, okay? So the vast majority of people have already gone through this process. But I want to read to you what they are saying, okay? It says the federal recommendations follow similar moves by Oregon and California. It says the White House has yet to sign off on the guideline that the agency is expected to release in April for public feedback. Here's the thing. One of the reasons why the CDC is waiting until April is because we are still in the colder months. People are indoors, okay? So because of that, they want to wait until springtime where people are more likely to move around outside. It's not going to be as infectious, whether it's the cold, the flu, RSV, doesn't matter, okay? So when people are outside, outdoors, they spread out, they're not so close, and we do not see these viruses increase. Well, here's the thing. The reason why they're going to wait is for that one reason. Second reason why they're going to wait is because now if they make that move that, okay, if you do contract COVID and you test positive, you don't have to isolate. Okay, you can go right back to work if you are symptom free. That's it. And so I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is a mistake? But here's one of the things that we are going to face in 2025, or actually 2024, in the winter of 2024. So in about, 9 months. The expectation is if we do not have any type of isolation period, what's going to happen is we will see the flu and potentially RSV. Now, COVID's going to be around for years. We know that, but we are going to see more people contract the flu next year than this year. Okay? I just want to warn you on that, because that is what we are already anticipating. Because by dropping this isolation guideline, more people are going to go back to work, even though they're not 100% healthy. But here's the thing. This year, 2024, or the 2023-2024 winter, what we were expecting, and which we did receive, more people were going to get COVID, we're going to get RSV, and going to get the flu. And we saw all that. More people were starting to get that, but they were able to fight the viruses themselves. They didn't have to go to the hospital. They didn't have to go to an emergency room. They were able to take over-the-counter prescription or over-the-counter medication, and they could fight it off themselves. That's the good news. That's what we want to see. So the good thing about what's happening right now is that we are starting to see a shift, and we're going back to normal. This means that if you do contract COVID and you test positive, you do not have to isolate if you are symptom free. No fever, no cough, no scratchy throat, no loss of, I think people still lose their smell every once in a while. But again, that is huge. That's huge, not just for the economy, for schools, for children, right? This is massive. But I want to know your thoughts. Do you think this is a good thing, or do you think this is a bad thing? Now, I want to read you one last thing right here. It says, officials said they recognize the need to give the public more practical guidelines for COVID, acknowledging that few people are following isolation guidelines that hasn't been updated since December of 2021. Back then, health officials cut the recommended isolation period for people with asymptomatic COVID from 10 days to 5 because they worried essential services would be hobbled as the highly transmissible Omicron variant sent infections surging. Again, here's the thing. They were worried essential services would be hobbled. That doesn't sound like that is worried about the American people. That sounds like you're worried about the economy. You're worried about workers. You're worried about employers. It sounds like that was more of a political move than one for health and safety. I want to read you one last thing. Right here says the plan to further loosen isolation guidelines when the science around infectiousness has not changed is likely to prompt strong and negative reaction from vulnerable groups, including people older than 65, those with weak immune systems, and long COVID patients. Now, that is likely to happen. But here's the thing. The majority of people are healthy. The majority of people are not over the age of 65, do not have a weak immune system. The majority can withstand this. So by putting out this guideline change is a massive move. But here's what some people are speculating. This move could be coming in a time when we are looking at, we're looking at the next president. Is it going to be President Joe Biden? Is it going to be former President Donald Trump? Is it going to be somebody else? We don't know. But is this going to be a politically motivated move by the Biden administration to try to drop this guideline now? Because that could be one of the things that they campaign on is, well, under the former president, everybody was isolated, locked in. Now, we've got rid of the isolation. People are healthier, right? There's less infections, right? It could be a politically motivated move, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But as of right now, that is what we know. So again, Thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.